What's up, everybody? Welcome into another YouTube live show. I am John Kurtz. A lot has been going on the last few days. I know for West Virginia fans, they certainly are feeling the brunt of that with the Bob Huggins story, and I do hope to get to that some point here today. But obviously, you know, most of these live shows center around conference realignment, and the latest realignment story is what is happening with San Diego State having to write one of the most awkward emails, I guess, but I feel like it's almost funnier to say letters, but having to write an incredibly awkward letter / email to their conference, their current conference, if you will, their current wife, the Mountain West, about wanting to leave in a month, but hey, don't take all my money yet. Don't take half of my money yet. Let's continue to keep that buyout, that money that we're going to have to pay on the way out down, if you will, for an extra month. And it's caused some friction within the Mountain West. And look, if I were San Diego State, to me, that would cause some friction with the Pac-12. Like George Kliavkoff's ineptitude on this TV deal is completely hanging San Diego State out to dry. That is, in essence, what has happened here. Another interesting thing that we have learned from, I would say, the reporting on this is that the Big 12, while somewhat interested in San Diego State, does not seem to be overly interested in San Diego State. So that is interesting, right? And I've fielded some questions recently in the last few weeks about San Diego State and the Big 12 because the common line from the Pac-12 lately with everything surrounding Colorado has been, hey, we'll just swap out Colorado for San Diego State and be fine. That's been a better football program here recently anyway. So I understand the thought from a Big 12 standpoint that people have asked, like, hey, why not just go get San Diego State preemptively so that the Pac-12 does not have that option? Then they're stuck going to SMU, which is a much bigger drop-off there in terms of what you're talking about substance-wise that you would be adding to the league. So I want to talk a lot about San Diego State today. And, with that, we'll get into the Big 12's reaction too. There's been a ton of reporting on it. There were like 2 or 3 big stories I pulled from The Athletic and from ESPN. Pete Thamel had the most in-depth reporting on what is going on with San Diego State in the Pac-12. And then outside of that, we've got a lot of mini updates, I would say, here today. Andrew Marchand has his latest Pac-12 update, which is pretty much on par with what he has been saying lately. It's not particularly kind to the Pac-12 and their odds of getting the TV deal that they want. Arizona State is speaking out. Ray Anderson, the athletic director there, I think we've long known that Ray Anderson was going to, has had the feeling that he is not a big fan of the Big 12. He's very loyal to the Pac-12, and that was echoed in his latest public comments. A report from John Canzano has you wondering about if the Pac-12 is spending too much time on the wrong things, I would say, in this TV negotiating deal. We will get to that. UConn is really flexing this Big 12 interest in helping to land football recruits right now, which bears a couple of interesting questions. Hey, is that evidence that UConn, the fact that they landed a huge quarterback recruit, a 4-star quarterback recruit, basically the biggest recruit they've ever landed, and did so while telling him, hey, we may be in the Big 12, is that evidence that UConn might really make a big jump if they get Power 5 money, if they get into the Big 12 for football? And then just also, like, how should we feel about UConn flexing that and using that? And then, look, the Bob Huggins story, just sad all the way around, man. Just a bummer of a story all the way around. Terrible. Bob Huggins gets a DUI, blows a .21, almost 3 times the legal limit. Sounded like he was blacked out from the police report. Was driving through a lot of traffic. Just a dangerous situation. And then tendered his resignation from West Virginia. So now the Mountaineers are in a tough spot. Their assistant coaches are in a tough spot. The great transfer class that they had is in a tough spot. So there's a lot going on there. A lot going on with the Bob Huggins story. And certainly have some thoughts on that as well. So that's what we've got. That's what we've got today on tap here on this Sunday. For whoever it was, and I apologize that I do not remember who it was that was critiquing the fact that the light switch was always visible in the background, I did my best to wedge a little whiteboard up there, and I was hoping that the camera contrast here looks great when the background's out of focus. Maybe not so much when you're tossing a note back there for everybody. So if anybody can guess what it is that it says over my shoulder on the whiteboard at some point here throughout the show, I'll give you a shout out for that. If you can guess what's actually on written on the whiteboard. I may have to rethink the plan here. I guess if you have any other ideas for what to put up there to cover up the light switch, let me know. And full disclosure, the thing may just fall during the show because, it's hard to stick a whiteboard on top of light switches when the switch sticks out, right? So there are not a lot of great solutions here, but this was attempt number one at it. I was channeling my inner Woody Page from Around the Horn, right? Woody Page's messages always cracked me up as a kid on Around the Horn, so I'm trying to channel that. So anybody want to take a guess at what is on there? You are free to do so here throughout the show. If you've been here before, you know how this works. If you want to get your question or comment in on the show here tonight, click the $ below the chat box where it says say something. That is how you can donate, support the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content on a week in, week out basis here on the channel, but also ensures that your question or comment makes it onto the chat tonight. It will tack it above everybody else's, pin it up at the top, and ensures that it will get read. So it is your way to control the content, make your voice heard, and support the work that I'm doing to bring you Big 12 content weekly. Could not do it without all of your support, and I genuinely do appreciate that. Like I said, about 170 people here in the chat right now, so I will not have time to keep tabs on that. I was trying to even read a little bit just a second ago as I was talking, and that's when you get some pauses. Very hard for me to do that. So if you want to be on, you got to click the $ below the chat box where it says say something to get your chat tacked up at the top. Also, totally free way to support the channel. Just like the video one time, just one click, one like. Very easy, very free, totally free way to support the channel. Just helps me with that algorithm. You can also leave a comment before, during, or after the video in the comment section. I appreciate all of that as well. Even if it's that you hate me, you totally disagree, just leave it there in the comment section. I greatly appreciate that. A way to help spike that algorithm and get more eyeballs on the video. So I always appreciate all of you guys who do that. Let's see. Any other housekeeping? John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you are catching up to this after the fact and you did not have a chance to see it live and support then. Okay, we'll kick things off with Matthew here. Matthew says, sad to see Huggins, and I appreciate Matthew, by the way, your support and weighing in here. Matthew says, sad to see Huggins go down in flames. This offseason was rough, but it was time, I suppose. Yeah, I mean, I guess first and foremost, the obvious thing here is like it seems very apparent that Bob Huggins has some issues going on. I mean, that is not a good situation. Driving a partially university, it was a lease through West Virginia, so like a vehicle that West Virginia in part owns, that the university in part owns, drove it through 3 different states, was basically blacked out. If you're reading the police report, they claim to have asked him about 10 times where he was coming from and didn't really know, and then at some point spit out Columbus, Ohio when he was in the Pittsburgh area. He was very close to where a Taylor Swift concert was going down. So like lots of traffic, lots of people around there. He had shredded a tire. He was blocking traffic. I mean, 0.21 is almost 3 times the legal limit. There was a bag full of beer cans, like empty beer cans in the car. Just not a good scene in any way, shape, or form for Huggins. And I bring that up not so much to try to shame the guy, but just to emphasize like that is not the scene of somebody that you would think is like in a good place. Like literally a trash bag full of empty beer cans and 3 times over the legal limit, and not being able to tell. He couldn't tell officers which leg he had surgery on recently. Couldn't remember that. Like failed every part of the field sobriety test. That is not a good situation of somebody that's in a good place. And these are 2 decisions now in the last handful of weeks that would indicate that, Bob Huggins he's been around a long time. He's had mics in front of him for like 40 years. So the fact that he went off and made the statements that he did on the radio, regardless of what you think about them or whether you think he really believes that or what, he's smart enough to know that that was going to get him in a lot of trouble. And so to say that on the radio, I'm like, what is going on with his judgment there? And honestly, at the time, I kind of wondered, I was like, was he drunk when he said it? It just seems like he's in a weird place where he's disregarding a lot of stuff that he's smart enough to know that he can't say that without repercussions. And he's obviously smart enough to know at this point, with a guy with a DUI in his past, with major health issues in the past, that is not something that he should be doing. I am fairly certain it would be pretty easy for him to get a ride through the university to help him out, and obviously did not abide by that at a time when he was very heavily inebriated. So I hope the guy gets help, man. I do. I know I saw some like, I mean, my guy Frank Martin, who was offering, pretty heartfelt sentiments about Huggins and like his coaching career and what he has meant to basketball and all of that. And like, I get it, I understand that sentiment. And if you're somebody that's inclined to feel that way, I don't have any issue with you saying that. I don't, and I'm somebody that's been very openly, like appreciative. I'll say appreciative of Bob Huggins because of. I mean, I will tell you, I don't think there's any doubt he jump started K-State men's basketball to get it to the place where it's been over the past 20 years when it was in one of the worst ruts really throughout the history of the program. But I don't feel like is the day for me to do a lot of that with Huggins. It's a really sad ending to his career. But when the guy has made the mistakes that he's made in the last, what has it been, a month or like 6 weeks or whatever since the radio thing, I don't know, man. It was a lot of dangerous, bad stuff. This is not the time to me to be bringing all of that up. But I will also say that I feel terrible for a lot of people in this situation, but particularly like West Virginia fans. I mean, I feel for you guys because this is brutal timing. Huggins had a really nice transfer class lined up for this year. I think I saw, some of the sentiment out there being like, oh man, he just blew a shot at a national championship and a national championship type of run. I was not that high on the transfer class. I didn't think that was a national championship worthy roster, but it certainly was one that could compete toward the top of the Big 12 and will give you a chance to go make a lot of noise in March. So it was a really, West Virginia clearly was going all in to try to buy a really nice roster for Bob Huggins for one last go around here. And yes, that is going to be no more. All these players now have a 30-day window where they can enter the transfer portal, which is what happens with a coaching change. So who knows how many of them are going to stick around Morgantown. West Virginia wants to go with a national search, not try to go the interim route here, but it's terrible timing to try and be doing that because everything's kind of set in stone. And like, we've seen this transfer portal cycle. Like if you're a new coach coming in and you lose a bunch of players, it's going to be tough to get that roster up to speed. Like it's an absolute freaking mess. And so for West Virginia fans who are already dealing with a lot of frustration with the football program and the state of that, now you've gone through 2 Huggins controversies in a row and you're losing the guy as the coach when you had this great transfer class. I feel for you, man. It is not the best of times for West Virginia. So I do have empathy for sure as far as that goes. So anyway, yeah, Matthew, I guess I kind of agree. I mean, I certainly did not want to see Bob Huggins' career go down this way. I did not want to see it in this way. But I mean, I think the important thing now, like, just hope that he gets help and thank God that nobody was hurt with him driving as impaired as he was in as high traffic an area as he was. So those are the thoughts that I really have on the Bob Huggins situation. Yeah, Matthew, appreciate you bringing that up. We could get that. We just knocked that out of the way. So we do get the reaction to Bob Huggins there. Sometimes those stories get a little buried by the realignment news of the day. So happy that we at least got to that. Rob, what's up, Rob? Rob S. in the house. Appreciate you, Rob. Thank you for being here as always. Rob says San Diego State screwed up and revealed George Kliavkoff's plan to get schools to agree to 10 school contract and then add 2 schools. Grant of rights requires 100%. Adding schools is only a majority. Clown show. I don't have a lot of blame to go around for San Diego State in this. I feel bad for them. And that's, that was kind of the tone of like the tease of the video today is I feel like they've been kind of screwed by how poorly George Kliavkoff and his merry band have played this whole thing. Constant deadlines and getting your hopes up and making you think that you're going to have it done. Like, think about it this way. So San Diego State was clearly feeling the pinch here of getting so close to June 30th. The June 30th deadline means that their exit fee goes from, I believe it's $16.5 million to $34 million. So in essence, your exit fee doubles if you don't announce before June 30th. The Pac-12 has said pretty clearly they're not going to add teams until they have the TV deal. So that it's just the waiting game, and they're sitting and waiting to get that before they can go add San Diego State, which is obviously going to happen if and when the TV deal comes through, but that has not come to fruition yet. And let's think about how all these presidents have reacted with putting out these deadlines and saying it's coming soon in 2 more weeks. And we feel like they have clearly been duped many a time by George Kliavkoff, leading them to believe that the deal was coming soon. If we are to believe that those guys are talking because they're hearing things from the lead guy, which you would have to believe is the case. if that's happening to the Pac-12 presidents, you'd imagine that'd be happening to San Diego State as well, right? Like they couldn't get more of a head start or just be more prepared for what it is that they were going to have to do here. They probably just assumed all along, well, look, we know it's in the bag that we're going to get an invite, especially if Colorado were to leave. Like we're definitely getting that invite. And they're probably getting the same word that everybody else was from Kliavkov. Like, all right, it's coming soon. Hey, we got a unity statement out here back in February that says very near future. At no point in time back then would they have been thinking, I would assume, hey, we may actually have to worry about trying to negotiate something early with the Mountain West because Kliavkov's not going to have this thing done by freaking June 18th. And we'll be less than 2 weeks out from that deadline having to sweat it out and wonder what exactly is going on. So I feel for San Diego State there. I would imagine, you guys know my skepticism with Kliavkov and all this because I've seen how his merry band has reacted. I have seen how he has reacted when he's been speaking publicly or pushed or challenged on anything on the rare occasions that has actually happened. And we've just seen the way the whole Pac-12 attitude has been with all of this, thinking that the Big 12 severely undercut their value. Just kind of ludicrous thinking. Like just I'm blanking on the word delusional, a little bit delusional. There has been some delusion from the Pac-12 and how all of this was going to go down, what their work was going to be. And I would just imagine that some of that has to have trickled down to San Diego State here while they're just waiting for their opportunity. And I mean, look, I have a lot of respect for San Diego State because they have 100% earned the shot here at the Power Five. They have earned the shot at the big time, and they have certainly earned a shot to be in the Pac-12, but they're just sitting here. And not only are they not in having to wonder about what's going to happen come June 30th, but the big piece here that I have not gotten into the reporting yet is that they had to make one of the most awkward asks that you will ever see. So I'm going to read you. It's a combination of the story from The Athletic and ESPN. San Diego State informed the Mountain West in a letter Tuesday it intends to resign from the conference. A source briefed on the matter confirmed to The Athletic in anticipation of joining a Power 5 conference that's widely assumed to be the Pac-12. So they had to send a letter to the Mountain West that they intend to resign from the conference, which sparked an awkward series of events. So here are the details. With a fast approaching June 30th deadline to give notice in time before a 2024 departure, the school has requested a 1-month extension before giving official notice. So the school was saying, hey, we're intending to resign, but this is not a resignation letter. Hey, I want to leave you. I want to divorce you, but this is not the official divorce paperwork yet. And I want you to hang on and not take my money yet. It's basically what they're asking here. After June 30th, the exit fee to leave would double from around $17 million to around $34 million. The Pac-12's negotiations for a new media rights deal have dragged on longer than anticipated and may not be completed by the end of the month. Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkov and other league officials have repeatedly stated they will not extend any expansion invitations until the revenue numbers from the next deal are finalized. So they're having to go to the Mountain West and say, you guys know we're going to leave. We know we're going to leave. We just don't know if it's going to happen yet by this date that has been set as far as the exit fee goes. And we kind of both know here, like, that's not something we can likely pay if it's going to jump up to 34. So can we have an extra month? Because we all know this is going to happen. And further reporting showed that their case was, hey, we made you about $10 million extra dollars from our basketball run here recently. And that's money that we won't see if we do leave the league. So like, hey, we scratched your back, you scratch ours. But what motivation truly would the Mountain West actually have to acquiesce to that and give in to that? I mean, I suppose shoot your shot. This is kind of like the ultimate San Diego State going with the ultimate, like, shoot your shot move. But this feels a lot like me trying to slide into Megan Fox's DMs and shoot my shot there as far as like what chance you have of it actually working out, what chance you have of that prayer being answered. Here was a tweet from Ross Dellinger that kind of underscores that point. It says, will the Mountain West grant San Diego State's request to extend the exit deadline of June 30th through July? Let's just say that ... it is not expected to grant such a request per several officials who spoke to SI Now. He also added in parentheses, as expected. And yes, how could you legitimately expect the Mountain West to just be like, oh, sure, we will bend to your will because you've done all these great things for us as we send you on to greener pastures. This is great. No, this is not like somebody at an entry-level job that has performed very well and is now getting a well-deserved raise and going on to a new job where you know, like, hey, they've just sort of outgrown us. We have to let them go. It's it's more tense in conference realignment. More stuff is on the line. People's jobs are on the line. Finances are on the line. And San Diego State leaving is clearly a huge blow to the Mountain West. You're not going to just say, oh, hey, that's great. Happy for you. See you later. We will accommodate you on the way out. That is not what this relationship is. That is not how conference realignment works. So that's the situation that San Diego State now finds themselves in, thanks to Cleve Cobb not being able to nail this thing down. So anyway, I appreciate it, Rob. Thank you for getting us into this topic, the main topic du jour tonight here on the video. You are correct about, the clown show aspect is definitely correct in terms of what it's been from the Pac-12 side of things, and this is just another piece of it. San Diego State is now like kind of collateral damage from the way all this has gone down, and we haven't thought probably as much about that as we should. John Teal, what's up, John Teal? Appreciate you being here. Thank you for your support. John Teal says San Diego State is divorcing a stable marriage for a Chad. Yeah, stable marriage, yes, but I guess it's one that is untenable if San Diego State wants to get where they want to go and like wants to get where they need to go to avoid being just completely left behind. I was trying to think of like what the appropriate. I don't know that I have like a great love life specific analogy for that aspect of it, but this is like they can stay in the Mountain West, but you're kind of just going down with the Titanic at that point. At least if you get the life raft to a Pac-12 or a Big 12, you're giving yourself a fighting chance to be in the college football playoff and somewhat be in the discussion, even if you're likely never going to get to the level of being in the Big 10 or the SEC. This is finding your life raft to the second tier so that hopefully you can wind up in the second tier, as opposed to just being stuck third or fourth tier for the rest of your college athletics life. So that's really the difference here. They need to make this jump, and the Mountain West knows they need to make this jump, but the Mountain West also has to worry about their own conference and their pocketbooks and their money and their constituents. And so because of that, why would they just willingly pass up $17 million that would be waiting there as a part of this exit fee for San Diego State? That would be pretty bad business. That would be pretty bad business if they were doing that. And so, yeah, it does not surprise me at all that this seems to be the reaction. LA Horn Frog. What's up, LA Horn Frog? Thank you for being here, LA Horn Frog. Appreciate your support. LA Horn Frog says, hey, John, wins in the college football playoff, NCAA tournament, and College World Series. Are we slowly starting to build a brand? Big 12 love, go Frogs, go Big 12. Well, I don't think it's been a fantastic year for both of our squads, LA Horn Frog, K-State and TCU. But TCU on the national scale has obviously done more than basically anybody in this league, certainly with what they did in football, winning the Fiesta Bowl, winning a playoff game, beating Michigan, getting to the national championship game. Regardless of how that game went, they got to the national championship game for the Big 12 and were the first team to win a college football playoff game for the league. Huge deal. College World Series, great run. They've been a great baseball program, but just adding to that this year with what they have been able to do and what was kind of a down year, honestly, for the Big 12. And part of that was because it took TCU a little while to find themselves this year in Big 12 play, but eventually they did just that. And NCAA tournament, yeah, not the deepest of runs of anybody in the conference, but still nice. Nice run for TCU and another really good, solid year for Jamie Dixon in the basketball program. They've had a nice offseason in the transfer portal, so that appears to be very healthy. And yeah, things in the TCU athletic department appear to be very, very healthy right now, all the way across the board. The only thing I would say about like building a brand, I think like building a brand kind of like regionally and certainly conference-wide, that is definitely there. The problem with like building a brand nationwide is that there's just the way that national championship game went, as unfair as it may be, to totally judge off of that, because you did make the national championship game, but so many people will just judge very harshly about how that game went. And so that's going to become somewhat of a cross to bear for TCU at the national level. But in terms of starting to build a brand as potentially being one of the Big 12 powers, yes, this year was a very nice step in the right direction for the Frogs as far as that goes. And it is, man, it's BS. It's almost like, TCU suffers a little bit from, I'll call it like the LeBron effect. Like what has happened to LeBron when he's held up against Michael Jordan. It's, hey, Jordan won every trip to the finals. He was not losing in the finals. And it's like, well, yeah, but I mean, if LeBron gets there more, it's like he's penalized for being there more, but actually losing some of those. Whereas had he lost in the semifinals, the Eastern Conference semis, instead of actually getting to the finals and losing, it wouldn't be as much of a black mark on his resume, which is ridiculous. But he gets held to that weird standard. And so it's like the same thing for TCU. You know, had they lost, say the Michigan game just plays out basically the same, but it flips the other way and you lose a close one possession game to Michigan, that may actually have been better in a way for TCU's national respect and brand than getting to the national championship and getting waxed the way that they did by Georgia. So, which is not fair, totally unfair. And that goes for the Big 12 too, right? Because a lot of this trickles down to the Big 12 and how the Big 12 is perceived. National championship game hurt the entire league. And I'm not trying to like blame TCU for that. I don't think anybody in the league last year was going to stand a chance against Georgia. But that's just kind of the weird double standards way we live today. What have you done for me lately? Sort of reactionary society that we all live in. So there is a little bit of damage as far as that goes. But I will not discredit anything that's happening at TCU right now. Fantastic time to be a Horned Frog fan for sure. Cat fan in Huskerland, aka Daniel Osborne. What is up, my friend? He said happy Father's Day. Father's Day to every father out there. Who is the most likely candidate for the West Virginia basketball job? Go Cats. Well, Daniel, happy Father's Day to you, my friend. Thank you for being here as always. Appreciate your support as always. Top 5 candidates for the West Virginia or the most likely candidates for the West Virginia basketball job. I was saying top 5 because I was just reading a piece on, I think it was Heartland College Sports, where I was reading like their candidates. It did not include the 2 like very popular, so honestly, like the 3 hot popular names that I seem to be seeing like on West Virginia Twitter. Obviously, one is Joe Mazzulla with the Boston Celtics, and I mean, I saw like West Virginia guys on Twitter saying like, hey, you know, I mean, you got to make him say no, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, you've got an alum in a high profile job that had a disappointing into a season. Maybe there's a way that you can pay him enough, and he wants the exit ramp and a place where he'll be totally welcome to be the savior and a hero right now at this time. Like, I mean, it seems far fetched, but you got to make the call. I would agree with that. You probably need to make the call. John Beeline was a popular name of people wanting to bring him back and be able to kind of, but that seemed to me to be more like a Band-Aid sort of solution. Because like, I don't know, how old is John Beeline? I perceive him to be pretty old. Yeah, he's 70. So, you know, I mean, that felt to me like more of a Band-Aid sort of solution. And West Virginia has said, hey, we're going national search here. We want to open this thing up and treat this like it was, you know, hiring in a more traditional time as opposed to right now. I'm trying to remember the other name. There was a third name that I'm blanking on. And West Virginia fans, you guys can help me out here in the chat. They would honestly be the better resource to ask here, Daniel. So I am going to leave it up to the chat. West Virginia fans, who else are you guys wanting for the job? Those were a couple of the names that I was hearing a lot about like initially and just have not seen. I didn't see that, at least on the list that I was reading on Heartland College Sports. It was thinking more, it was like guys from Huggins coaching tree. Some of them I hadn't heard. Andy Kennedy and Frank Martin, I think, were on the list. Frank Martin's at UMass. Yeah, I love Frank. I think he did great things at K-State, but and I mean, took South Carolina to a Final Four, but it, you know, just feels like he's kind of on the back nine of his career a little bit, and is obviously not as hot as he was at one point as a head coach. I think that whole style, like he has that same style that like Brad Underwood does at Illinois. Again, a guy that came from the Huggins coaching tree that's just like so fiery and I don't know that it's the best way to resonate with players in 2023. I feel like the game and attitude and tenor has changed for a lot of these players where it's tougher to do that kind of style than it was even like, you know, 10, 15 years ago when Frank Martin was doing it at K-State. So I wonder about the effectiveness of that. You know, Andy Kennedy has done all right. That wouldn't drive me crazy or make me crazy about the hire if I were West Virginia, but there was some buzz that like Andy Kennedy was at least in the discussion for the K-State job when they wound up and hired Jerome Tang here. So I know those are some names that I will float out there, but I know West Virginia fans, you're much more in the know about this than I am. So I'll let you guys handle more of that in the chat. I'm seeing some of you guys breaking. Kurtz wants to shoot a shot with Megan Fox. Well, yeah, man. Yes, of course. There There is no secret about that. Megan Fox is typically my default. If someone's talking about, oh, who's your celebrity crush or whatever. I always been a big Megan Fox fan. Always been a big Megan Fox fan. Brian, what's up, Brian? Brian, I appreciate your support. Thank you for being here. Brian says, Kliavkov may be delusional, over his head, or whatever term you may use. But in my opinion, he so far is not as bad as Larry Scott. Hashtag go Ducks. Okay, yeah, Brian, Oregon fan in here. And, well, it's hard to be worse. Let's just say that. Like, it's not even like if we're talking about a bar that you have to clear to be better than Larry Scott, that's not something like this. This is not the high jump where you're going to have to like leap over that thing. That's just, you need to step over it. Like speed bump in the road, but you're walking and all you have to do is just lift your foot and step over it. And you're going to be a better commissioner than Larry Scott was. But I don't know. I guess I would say it this way, Brian. I wonder how history would look back on it if this is a hypothetical, and I'm not saying that I think this is the overwhelming likelihood or anything like that, but if they do not get a sufficient enough TV contract and it leads to a couple of teams leaving and it ultimately leads to the death of the Pac-12 conference, will history shine brighter or just put who would be painted in a more effective and beneficial light after that? Would it be Larry Scott or would it be George Kliavkov? Because clearly Scott would have started everything in motion to send the Pac-12 down this road. But Kliavkov would have been the one at the helm when he didn't get the TV deal done, the league ended, and when it all started with USC and UCLA leaving, regardless of how responsible he actually was for it. So I'd be very interested how the history books would tell that if that happens. But Kliavkov obviously still very much has the opportunity to change that narrative. And maybe he does pull out a great TV deal. It's $33 million a year per school and has a decent amount of linear visibility, and is going to be a great deal, and history will definitely look more fondly on him than they did Larry Scott. But a lot of time to go before we really find out the answers to that. But yes, right now I would say, yeah, I mean, just by default, he's probably winning the race against Larry Scott, especially as all of these stories come out. All the stories we talked about with the Pac-12 having to pay out money to people, being sued, the Comcast thing, like all that stuff has come basically from Larry Scott. So he's still continues to hurt the Pac-12 to this day. So right now, I think, yeah, it's fair to say that Kliavkov is probably a little bit higher than him on that pecking order, but in dangerous territory right now with the conference's life kind of hanging in the balance right now. I'm trying to see. I was going to check here. The Yates 27. I'm getting to you in just a second. I was just going to check and see if there was anybody that had thrown out other names for the West Virginia job. I'm really not seeing many. Really, I just see Joe Mazzulla. Yeah, I see Joe Mazzulla, which that much seems obvious. Yeah, okay. The Yates 27. Thank you for your support. Appreciate you being here. The Yates 27 says, I watch every week, but can't always participate because I usually work. But you always get a like from me. Very bummed about Huggins. What does West Virginia do? Well, thank you, the Yates 27. I appreciate you being here. Glad that you were able to join live this time, and I sincerely appreciate the support there and the likes on the video. So that's a great reminder, as the Yates 27 has now reminded all of us. It is totally free and just takes one click to go like the video. I would very much appreciate that. That helps me with the YouTube algorithm. You can also leave a comment in the comment section of the video. Whether you love me, hate me, agree or disagree, all of that stuff really helps. And if you do want to get your question or comment on the show tonight, like the Yates 27, just click the $ below the chat box where it says say something in order to do that. Support the work I'm doing, bringing you Big 12 content on a weekly basis, and get your voice heard on the program here tonight. Could not do it without all of you guys who do support me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I cannot say that enough, as always. Yes, I feel like, everybody is kind of just bummed about the Huggins thing. I don't think it's appropriate to say like I'm not mad, just disappointed, because I think it's like a little bit of everything. Like you're kind of mad too. I think we've the Yates 27. If you didn't hear it, we were talking just a second ago about potential candidates. I saw a list that had like Frank Martin, Andy Kennedy. That feels to me like just an antiquated way to go about doing it right now. I think West Virginia can aim a little bit higher on that. Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Boston Celtics, who's a West Virginia alum and played on great Bob Huggins teams. That seems like probably one that's going to be out of reach based on where he's at right now. And so then after that, like John Beilein had been floated, but Ren Baker is like a pretty new athletic director, right? And they've said they want to do a national search. We know that they've had good NIL support this past year, so I think there's some financial support there. There's obviously pretty good tradition. There's obviously a great fan base and great fan support. And the Big 12 is the lead or the nation's best basketball conference. So, like, I think West Virginia, if it were, here's the problem, the wild card, if it were a normal hiring time, like if they were making this hire in March or April, I would say, like, look, West Virginia is going to find a really good coach because of everything I just rattled off there. The wild card and the thing that's tougher to control here is the timing of it, because this is just such a rough time to be looking for a coach when we're getting, I mean, June, I mean, like, we're not that far away from getting into the fall and practice actually starting, the season being here, and the portal's kind of dried up, and it just is, it's not the optimal time to be doing this. So I wonder if that would limit at all the opportunities that are going to be there. But I still think West Virginia is going to wind up with probably a coach that is not anybody on that list and will be somebody that's got a pretty good resume because of everything that program has to offer. I think there's too much there for them not to make a pretty good hire here. And my feeling would be it's probably not going to be anyone with, like, everyone always goes to the obvious ties and, guys from the coaching tree or guys that are alums, like, in a situation like this when it happens. I think we may need to, like, wait and for the dust to settle and see what Ren Baker is going to do here with what he clearly has indicated is going to be a national search. So that to me is what clues me into, like, I feel like it may go beyond that. And hey, I mean, I feel for Ren Baker here, but he was the guy that just, I feel like it was 6 weeks ago when the radio comments were made. He stuck by Huggins then, and that was a decision. I don't know that I would have done it, but he decided to make that decision, and at that point, there's a chance you get burned. Not just from that. Huggins has a DUI earlier in his career. He's not been a controversy-free guy. And so you were rolling the dice, and West Virginia got burned, man. I'm not like a gambling guy, but this, when it comes up 7, it's bad, right? Like, okay, the dice did not come up the way that you wanted them to. So anyway, that's now you got to live with it, and now you got to go make a difficult hire in a difficult spot. I think Michael is next here. Michael is next. Michael, appreciate the support. Thank you for being here. As always, Michael Goldman says, stopping in to support. I'll listen later. # Go Cougs. Thank you for that, Michael. You are the best for making that trip specifically just to support the channel. R Web. Hey, what's up, R Web? Always love seeing you. R Web says, hey, John, San Diego State proves Georgie can go shopping. LOL. Yeah, well, maybe R Web, this is all because, Kliavkov last we heard said he wasn't sure. They hadn't decided yet if they were going to go shopping in the Big 12 store or not. I guess it just means he's still mulling that decision. Right? Hey, slow, deliberate process. He's still trying to figure out if he wants to go shopping in the Big 12, and that's why San Diego State hasn't gotten the call yet. They're not in a Power 5 conference. The Big 12 obviously is a Power 5 conference, so Georgia's still mulling whether or not he wants to stoop to the level of going shopping at the Big 12, and that's why going shopping in the Mountain West hasn't happened quite yet. And San Diego State is left here floundering less than 2 weeks before the deadline, where all of a sudden they would owe $34 million instead of $17. You are correct, R Web. I think you nailed that. You nailed that one. Cougar Tracks. What's up, Cougar Tracks? Cougar Tracks, thank you as always for being here, and thank you for your support of the channel. Cougar Tracks says, do you think any Pac-12 teams will jump to the Big 12 if the media deal is below $25 million? Below $25 million per team, I think, is pretty dangerous territory there. Now you're talking about $7 million less per year. In the next couple of years, you're talking about maybe even less with, like, the Comcast issues that they are having. It's that to me would be danger territory, danger zone. If anybody watches Archer fans out there, danger zone. That is danger zone for the Pac-12 if it's there. I would anticipate that it's going to be more than that. I think the Pac-12 would get a deal better than that. Question then would become, are you taking too much of a hit in visibility? Are you having to sacrifice too much and go too far in the streaming end? If that's going to be the deal to get it above $25 million. But I do think it'll be more than that. I would guess that it would be more than that. Speaking of more than that, I did not get through all of the reporting in the San Diego State story here, so I'm going to hop back into that. Now we're getting into Pete Thamel, who had a little bit more detail on this. And by the way, while I'm doing this, click the $ below the chat box where it says say something. if you would like to be a part of the show tonight, if you would like your question or comment to be read, and if you want to support the work that I'm doing here on the channel to bring you Big 12 content on a week in, week out basis. D Nooms in the house. And I was going to go into the rest of the story, but D Nooms is challenging me here. So I've got to address it. D Nooms says, what is Mahomes' record against Burrow? It's like, let's see, I am wearing I'm wearing this thing, D Nooms. That's a Super Bowl logo. The Chiefs won one of those last year. They've won two since Patrick Mahomes has been quarterback. I know you may not be as familiar with that, being that you are a Joe Burrow fan who has not won a Super Bowl, but I just wanted to let you know that is a Super Bowl logo right there. So I think Mahomes, it's 1-2 or 1-3 against the Bengals, who have, done an excellent job against him in the regular season, and absolutely punked him 2 years ago in the second half of the AFC Championship game. But the thing is, Mahomes found his way through to win two of those. He's also got 2 Super Bowl MVPs and 2 regular season MVPs. And my guess, D Nooms, is that you might trade those couple of regular season wins that give you the better overall record against Mahomes for those Lombardi trophies. Because let me tell you, they're really fun. So I live here about 2 blocks away from where the parade went down that the Chiefs had after winning the Super Bowl this year. And let me tell you, man, it is a blast. It's great to win a regular season game, but when you can just hop out and go walk down to a parade and just a party with, Kelsey and Mahomes slugging beers and lugging the Lombardi around, that's a more fun experience. So just a word to the wise, just a little helping hand to you, that I think that's the more fun route to go here. So if I were you, I would tell Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase to actually win a Super Bowl. That's what I would do if I were you, because I think it would be more fun in the end for you yourself. So just my advice there, word to the wise here in the offseason. Okay. Let's see. Pete Thamel. Okay. Pete Thamel on San Diego State. Pete Thamel says, the school has also been a part of the Big 12's realignment exploration. So here we're getting into the Big 12. The school has also been a part of the Big 12's realignment exploration, and there have been conversations. So this is another person saying there have been conversations between San Diego State and the Big 12, but sources say neither side has prioritized the other to this point. Quote, SDSU is exploring all of the options and asking all the questions, the source said. The intention of the June 13th letter wasn't that San Diego State is exiting, which, that is the funny part of this. Like, the intention of the June 13th letter wasn't that San Diego State is exiting. I think it's going to get into this a little bit later, but San Diego State sent that first letter saying like, hey, our intention is to resign, but we want you to extend this by a month. And the league said, okay, we accept your letter of resignation. And San Diego State had to come back and say, no, that was not a letter of resignation. We are just giving you a heads up that like we are going to resign, and we'd like you to extend this deadline by a month and not charge us for doing so. Like, that was the whole idea here. And that's the part that cracks me up. The source says the intention of the June 13th letter wasn't that San Diego State is exiting. That's what I'm saying when I'm saying San Diego State has just been put in a terrible position here and kind of screwed by the Pac-12 with the fact that they are having to go do this. Just imagine having to try to have that conversation. But I also think a key point here is, but sources say neither side has prioritized the other to this point. I think that's very telling about the Big 12 here, because this would be like, this is an opening. This is an opportunity. San Diego State is feeling the pressure. Like, if you wanted to swoop in right now and say, hey, we'll get it done, guys. You won't have to worry about that June 30th thing. You're not going to have to worry about the Mountain West saying, F you, we're not going to give you the money. You won't have to worry about any of that at all if you come to the Big 12. And then, bam, you're getting into that time zone, the after dark time slot that Brett Yormark really wants. And you're delivering a blow to the Pac-12, not just like a legitimate blow in terms of what they can do for a replacement candidate, but another big hit to their reputation. People would be looking around saying like, man, like Pac-12's in some trouble here. Maybe that motivates Colorado a little bit more just to get the ball moving, get the ball rolling a little bit. But it doesn't seem like that has been Brett Yormark's desire right there. And to me, would fall a little bit more into, they feel like some bigger fish are potentially out there. You know, we saw a source in the Big 12 quoted in an article recently that was like, hey, Why would we not wait and just see what happens with the Pac-12 and see what happens with the ACC first? And really, I think that was in reference to like UConn or Gonzaga before going down those roads, but maybe it applies here to San Diego State as well. I would view San Diego State as a much more enticing option than either of those two. You're still getting a nice premium basketball program. Okay, maybe not as premium as UConn, but you're getting a pretty good basketball program. You're getting a much better football program than what UConn has there, and you're still getting into a desirable media market, pretty akin to UConn and trying to use that for New York. So I think there are more advantages there than there would be to UConn or Gonzaga. But then the argument would come, are there more than Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Colorado, four corners out of the Pac-12 right now, which seem to be at least somewhat in the discussion here. Back to the article. Along with the 1-month extension requested in Tuesday's letter, the school also asked the league to consider discussing the exit fee. San Diego State noted the income the Aztecs have generated for the Mountain West through the NCAA basketball tournament, estimated this March to be at least $10 million. Oh, there goes the sign, guys. I hope somebody guessed what it was before it fell. I told you it was going to fall at the beginning of this because you can't really get a sign to stay nice and flush over an actual light switch. But I attempted. I tried for all of you guys. San Diego State requested that a 4-year installment plan be considered for the exit fee. So that's interesting. They're saying like, hey, can we get a payment plan? They're trying to finance the exit fee. San Diego State requested that a 4-year installment plan be considered for the exit fee. As of now, SDSU would have to pay the fee by June 2024, which would include the league withholding payment of its distribution to the school. Yeah, that's the other part of this. The San Diego State is close to getting their $6 million from the league as a part of like the typical annual payout here. But now that's iffy because if the league is saying, hey, we're taking this as your resignation, then they wouldn't be getting that payout, right? So San Diego State is in a horrible spot here. There is so much awkwardness to handle and very tricky for their finances to make all of this happen the way that they're going to want it to. Here's a Mountain West source to Pete Thamel. Quote, they're trying to find out what we're willing to do. They want to see if the Mountain West Conference is going to handle this nicely. Well, that's not going to happen. Everyone wants to find the best financial path for themselves, and it's clunky. So there's a Mountain West source saying, well, that's not going to happen. It goes along with The Athletic saying that it was not likely that they were going to acquiesce either. So all the reporting right now would indicate that that is not something that's going to happen. A source briefed on the matter said it's unclear why the Mountain West would agree to extend the smaller exit fee, which, of course, why would they? A source briefed on the exchange said the intent behind San Diego State's initial letter was not to officially withdraw, but the Mountain West took it as such. Okay, we talked about that. The SDSU letter was sent to all the league university presidents, which quickly escalated the tenor of the exchange. The league responded and told San Diego State they'd accepted the school's letter of withdrawal, essentially triggering the subsequent consequences of such a move. That's what led to a third letter, this one again sent by SDSU to clarify that it was not an official withdrawal, or rather a process by which it was asking questions about the buyout terms and requesting a month-long extension. Can you imagine if you are like the San Diego State president or athletic director and like you get that email back where they're like, okay, great, we accept your resignation. And you're like, no. And you're in a fury. You cannot type, your fingers can't move fast enough to type that response and get it back out. They're like, no. That was not it. We've all had those moments, right? Where you check your phone, it's buzzing in your pocket, and you look and you're like, oh, bleep. Like, I've got to get that taken care of. We've got to get that figured out like right now. That's what I imagine was going on there. Like a sense of panic. Like, no. Can't have that happen. That it appears what happened to San Diego State in all of this. Getting to the end here, and then I'll get to the rest of your donations. Appreciate you guys that are waiting patiently there. One source involved in the letter exchange said that San Diego State was simply trying to do its due diligence as June 30th approached to establish its options moving forward. San Diego State has also had multiple conversations with the Big 12 in recent months. Two conference sources said, but the feeling on both sides, at least initially, was that the Aztecs' preference was to go to the Pac-12. The Aztecs had been on the Big 12's expansion radar, but multiple conference sources say adding that school is not a priority for the Big 12 at this time. So there's the Athletic saying basically the same thing that Pete Thamel said earlier. Yeah, I think the rest of it is really not that relevant. So that's what we have as far as the reporting goes on the San Diego State situation. And I just hopped right over Rob. Let's go. Rob S. What's up, Rob S? Rob S, appreciate you and your support once again. Rob S says, lost in all the pack talk. The Big Ten still hasn't finalized their media deal. At the end of the day, the Big Ten mega deal might not be nearly as mega. It might not be as mega. I wouldn't throw the nearly in there. I think it'll still be nearly as mega, but it might not be as mega. You're right. Although technically, we still haven't seen the Big 12 officially announce their TV deal either. So it seems like these things really lag behind with a lot of the I's being dotted and T's being crossed. Although the Big Ten, obviously, they're extraordinary circumstances with that. We did the show where we read about Tony Petitti and everything that he is having to do as the new Big Ten commissioner to smooth over promises that Kevin Warren made that he probably shouldn't have, like a Big Ten championship game going to a network that didn't technically have the rights to it. So there's a messy situation there for the Big Ten to try to work through. But I still think it'll be close. Like, that's not going to be money that really changes their standing. It wouldn't be significant enough to change their standing as one of the big two. Maybe it knocks them a little bit below the SEC instead of a little above the SEC. So it could still matter to like the Big Ten's pride. But I don't think it really tangibly will matter for much else. Pride, and I don't know, like maybe if you think that gives the SEC some little extra edge when they're trying to pursue Virginia and North Carolina with both of those leagues, eyeing those two as maybe the top two expansion candidates left on the board other than Notre Dame. I don't think it affects this whole discussion all that much. But it is correct to bring up, like, yeah, that's kind of a mess that the Big Ten is dealing with and still has not been finalized. D Nooms, our resident Cincinnati fan in here, says, seeing Kelsey chugging beers was a fun college experience. Well, I am jealous of that. I am definitely jealous of that. Look, Travis Kelce's my dude, man. I freaking love that guy. I mean, much as I love Mahomes, like Kelsey is about as close as you can possibly be. I was just having a nice conversation with somebody. Hopefully you'll appreciate this, D Nooms. I was just having a conversation with somebody last night about catching Kelsey, the Travis Kelce dating show, circa probably like 2013 or 2014, somewhere around there, that I gleefully watched every episode of. Unfortunately, it did not seem to work out in a love connection for Travis Kelce, but it was some good entertainment. So, yeah, been big on Travis Kelce for a long time. And he seems like an insanely fun guy to have partied with in college. So that was your experience, D Nooms. That I do not have on you. And I am very, very jealous of that. Also, you got to love Travis Kelce really reps Cincinnati, man. He definitely reps Cincinnati still as big a star as he is right now. So that's good pub for Cincinnati and by default, good pub for the Big 12. Look at that. I mean, the Chiefs, all of you guys better love the Chiefs out there, man. That's the Big 12 connection. We've got Texas Tech to Cincinnati. Patrick Mahomes to Travis Kelce is the most dynamic thing going in the NFL. So, that is good publicity, good for that Big 12 brand. I'm sure Brett Yormark loves seeing that. Matthew, what's up, Matthew? Matthew Hunsaker in the house. Appreciate you as always, Matthew. Thank you for your support. Matthew says, third quarter buzzer beater here. Gotta run. We'll listen to the rest later. Hoping for a lot of material this week to discuss in 7 days. Media stall tactics for the Pac-12 are running us all ragged. Yeah, definitely some stall tactics, and those stall tactics are what are now really hurting San Diego State. I think we've all been hoping for a lot of like substantial material every 7-day period, but it just turns into like we're kind of like Kirk Schultz. Like we can say that and sit here and say it every week, and then we're going to look silly the next week when nothing substantial really has happened, like nothing tangible outside of stuff that's a little more on the periphery, like the San Diego State story. When I say tangible, I'm talking like, now I guess we do that Colorado board meeting is still scheduled for tomorrow, but look, this is what I said about it last time. We have heard so much reporting that Colorado has interest, that there have been meetings, that I would not think that we're going to get to the day of a board meeting where they're going to like vote to leave and we haven't seen reporting on it. We haven't seen it leaked already. And that was, supposed to be tomorrow, and we're sitting here Sunday evening. Nobody said anything. Nobody has reported that. So I would not at all expect that to happen tomorrow. But hey, here's to hoping, Matthew. Here's to hoping that we can get some real tangible action within the next week. I saw someone bring up very briefly in the comments that UConn had landed a 4-star quarterback. I do want to talk about that for a moment. If you have one to beat the buzzer here, we got about 5 minutes left in the show. Click the $ below the chat box where it says say something if you want to be a part of the show here tonight. That is how you can support the channel, make your voice heard, and dictate the content. Couldn't do it without all of your support, and I appreciate you guys that do that each and every week. You've got 5 more minutes to do so, but let's talk about UConn. So UConn football landed its highest rated recruit in the Jim Mora era when Cole Welliver, a 6'6" quarterback from Texas, announced his decision to join the Huskies as a part of the class of 2024. Welliver did say, according to the Hartford Courant, that the idea of UConn moving to the Big 12 was brought up on his visit. Quote, they were talking about the Big 12 and moving to the Big 12, saying how if it does go through, how such a big deal that would be for all the players and the school. So UConn was, what they call that, flexing, man. UConn was flexing the Big 12 interest. They were flexing the fact that they might actually get the invite to the Big 12 at some point in time. Interesting in one way, because it seems like UConn's resistance there would be the basketball having to leave the Big East. This is on the football side. I mean, to me, this just really screams like not anything significant as to like how far that is down the road or anything like that. It's, the football coaches aren't dummies, man. They're going to use anything and everything to their advantage in the recruiting world. And they rightfully so would think, hey, this might be a little bit of an advantage for us to tout this to a potential recruit. Then absolutely you do it. You definitely do it. I think the more compelling discussion point out of this one is like, all right, is there legitimate teeth? Are there legitimate teeth to the fact that, hey, or substance to the fact that UConn could actually really elevate their football brand and their football program if they go to the Big 12? Because this would be an early indication that, hey, maybe actually they could. Maybe actually that can happen. Jim Moore is out here landing a 4-star quarterback. Program at least appears to be moving in the right direction. I mean, I think we've got a long way to go to know how much actually getting to the league would help them overall across the board, but we're at least seeing an early indication that it could help. It could help a little bit. It could help tangibly and substantially get them rolling if that were to happen. So that's an interesting little blurb. John Canzano had a report this week that really makes you wonder about why this is taking so long for the Pac-12 and what kind of discussions they're actually having here. Canzano said, I'm told by sources that the Pac-12 had the potential media rights partners model deals that included both San Diego State and SMU. No surprise there. And hey, obviously you're going to do that. That seems like the obvious move, that they're going to go add those two teams as soon as they get a TV deal. They'd want to know what that deal is going to look like. And maybe it is that they had them run those numbers and they were worse per team than numbers without them, and then they'd wait to add them. I don't know. But he also says, I'm told the conference looked at every scenario by a source in the room. The Pac-12 even asked potential partners for media models that involved UCLA. And that is where I'm just like, what is the Pac-12 doing? Like, wasting their time with the UCLA thing. Cleve Cobb wasted a lot of time with that back toward like the end of football season. This was a long time ago when that refrain was, hey, the only reason the TV deal has been delayed here is because they're waiting to see if they can pull UCLA back in, if the Board of Regents is going to help them out. And Cleve Cobb out here saying they're making a financial mistake by going to the Big Ten because of travel costs and how this all, just this ridiculous, like, jilted lover line of thinking. And apparently they were having TV partners throw together packages that would have included UCLA. That is wasted energy. That is not good energy to be utilizing when instead your focus should be other places. It reminds me of, like, I remember Bill Snyder saying when he won his first conference championship back in 2003, that at that point, K-State was able to get into living rooms that they weren't before, but they were living rooms of guys like more elite prospects that they weren't ever going to really close anyway. So they started using too much attention on these guys that would at least give them the time of day at that point, but weren't actually going to sign there. And then you miss out on doing your due diligence on guys that actually were forming the foundation of your program that got you to winning a Big 12 championship. And that feels to me, it's like, that just seems like effort thrown towards something that was a pipe dream, never going to happen, when you could have been further progressing your actual TV deal. And, the TV deal realistically with what it was going to be, with what teams you would have, and then maybe be further along in the process than you are right now, and not sitting here in this awkward spot. Cyclone Steve. What's up, Cyclone Steve? Cyclone Steve says having one Eastern Standard Time school would help with travel scheduling. Well, West Virginia fans, we've been talking about West Virginia fans here. I'm sure, yes, West Virginia fans would love to have an extra Eastern Time Zone partner. That would probably make their life a little bit easier. It also extends more of that coast-to-coast reach that Brett Yormark is talking about. So yeah, it probably would. But I think the other thing I would just say here, Cycle and Steve, is like I don't think that is super high on the priority list. Like that's just kind of a nice to have, not need to have. It's realignment. You need money, you need brands, you need eyeballs. Like, and so that is what counts over anything else, including scheduling, travel partners, that sort of thing. As rough as it can be for West Virginia out there, the Big 12's prime concern is not to get them some sort of a travel partner or more company out there. Their prime concern is to make money for the schools in the league, and put together the best league possible. So that would be my take on that. Um, this is a good way to end it. Big T08 with a great comment here. Thank you for chiming in here with this. Big T08 says, I'm a little behind on the chat, but if Megan Fox can't see the appeal of a top 5 jawline in Kansas, who needs her? I agree, Big T08. What a great comment that is. If Megan Fox can't see the appeal of a top 5 jawline in Kansas, who needs her? You know, I don't. Machine Gun Kelly. Someone put my picture side by side. Machine Gun Kelly. Let's compare jawlines there, and somebody get the word out to Megan that hanging out with the YouTuber that's talking about Big 12 football and conference realignment's the better way to go than the rock star. So I couldn't agree more, Big T08. I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. All right. I think that's going to do it for me tonight, guys. Appreciate you all for being here. Fun chat tonight. Should, as of right now, I believe, be back at it on Wednesday with another live chat. I tell you guys this every time, but please continue to spread the word about the channel, word of mouth, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you know friends or family that love the Big 12, love your school. Let them know about the channel. Let's continue to grow this thing. Like the video on your way out the door. If you have not, I appreciate that. That is totally free. Leave a comment in the comment section. Also totally free. Love me, hate me, agree, disagree. Whatever it is that you want to do there, all of that stuff really helps me, and I appreciate it a lot. You can donate on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. If you're catching up to this after the fact and not catching it live, that is another way you can support the channel as well. And with that, ladies, gentlemen, I bid you adieu. Thank you for being here for another great chat tonight. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night, and I will talk to you all soon.